In the heart of a forgotten town, shrouded in an eerie mist, stood an abandoned hospital. Once a beacon of hope, it now exuded an aura of dread that seemed to seep into the very fabric of its walls. Locals whispered stories of inexplicable occurrences within its decaying corridors, but none dared to venture inside, until the fateful night when curiosity got the better of a group of friends. Among them was Sarah, a young woman with an insatiable thirst for adventure. Her companions, Alex, the rational thinker, Mia, the thrill-seeker, and Jake, the skeptic, had agreed to explore the forsaken hospital, each for their own reasons. Armed with flashlights, they cautiously pushed open the creaking doors. The air was heavy with the scent of mildew, and their footsteps echoed ominously as they stepped into the dimly lit entrance hall. Dust motes danced in the beams of their flashlights, casting eerie shadows on peeling wallpaper. A sense of unease settled upon them, but their excitement propelled them forward. Their journey led them through desolate hallways, past rusted gurneys and broken equipment. As they descended deeper into the bowels of the hospital, strange sounds began to echo around them, a faint whispering that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Sarah's heart raced, but she shook off her growing unease. In a room littered with discarded medical records, Mia discovered a patient logbook dated decades ago. The entries spoke of bizarre cases, patients with symptoms that defied medical explanation, haunted by nightmarish visions. But one entry stood out, the story of a girl named Emily, who had vanished without a trace from her hospital bed. Sarah's curiosity surged, and she suggested they locate Emily's room. As they climbed a decaying staircase, they came upon a corridor enveloped in an unnatural chill. At the end, they found room 307, its door ajar, hinges squealing as if protesting their intrusion. Inside, a rickety bed stood against one wall, adorned with frayed restraints. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine as she noticed faint markings on the floor, as if someone had scratched at the tiles in a desperate attempt to escape. The room seemed to exhale memories of suffering and fear, its walls seemingly imbued with the lingering anguish of its past occupants. Determined to unravel the mystery, the group split up to search for clues. Sarah explored a nearby storage closet, her flashlight revealing shelves laden with jars containing deformed organs floating in formaldehyde. The jars seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly glow, and Sarah stumbled back in horror. Meanwhile, Alex delved into the hospital's basement, where he stumbled upon a series of interconnected tunnels. The walls seemed to throb as if the very architecture of the hospital was alive. His flashlight flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to twist and writhe. Panic seized Alex as he realized the tunnels were shifting, rearranging themselves like a sinister maze. Mia ventured into the hospital's operating theater, where an unsettling sight awaited her. On the rusted surgical table lay an ancient, tattered journal. As she flipped through its pages, she discovered a surgeon's horrifying accounts of experimental procedures conducted on unwilling patients. The last entry was signed with a trembling hand, the name Emily. In the midst of their chilling discoveries, the group's radios crackled to life with garbled voices. Panic-stricken, they regrouped and made a frantic attempt to leave, but the hospital seemed to have other plans. Doors slammed shut, corridors shifted, and the very walls seemed to close in around them. Desperation turned to terror as they realized they were trapped, caught in the hospital's malevolent grasp. The whispered voices grew louder, morphing into guttural cries that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Shadows danced and contorted, taking on grotesque forms that seemed to leer and taunt. In a desperate bid for escape, they retraced their steps back to room 307, where they had first encountered the story of Emily. There, they found the room transformed, a nightmarish abyss that seemed to twist and warp reality. Emily herself stood before them, her spectral form shifting between innocence and malice. With a haunting wail, Emily's spirit surged forward, her tormented presence threatening to consume them. But Sarah, driven by a surge of courage, brandished the journal she had found. As she held it aloft, the journal began to emit a blinding light, pushing back the encroaching darkness. In a final harrowing confrontation, Emily's tortured spirit dissipated, and the hospital's malevolent energy seemed to recede. The group stumbled back into the entrance hall, dazed and battered, as the first rays of dawn pierced through the mist outside. The hospital, once a breeding ground for suffering and despair, now stood silent and still. As they walked away, they knew they had witnessed something beyond comprehension, something that defied the boundaries of reality and reason. Years later, the group's members would never speak of that fateful night. They had narrowly escaped the clutches of a malevolent force that had lingered within the hospital's decaying walls. Yet even as they moved on with their lives, they couldn't shake the feeling that the echoes of the hospital's haunted past still whispered in the recesses of their minds. In a final, harrowing confrontation, Emily's tortured spirit dissipated, and the hospital's malevolent energy seemed to recede. The group stumbled back into the entrance hall, dazed and battered, as the first rays of dawn pierced through the mist outside. The hospital, once a breeding ground for suffering and despair, now stood silent and still. As they walked away, they knew they had witnessed something beyond comprehension, something that defied the boundaries of reality and reason. Years later, the group's members would never speak of that fateful night. They had narrowly escaped the clutches of a malevolent force that had lingered within the hospital's decaying walls. Yet even as they moved on with their lives, they couldn't shake the feeling that the echoes of the hospital's haunted past still whispered in the recesses of their minds. If you like the story, subscribe to Horror Haven and hit that notification bell.